Hey everybody, welcome back to Dorm Squad Sports, a college sports podcast focused on Alabama athletics. I'm Dakota here with Brian and Oakley, and we got a lot to talk about. So first up, towards the end of this episode, we're actually going to have an interview with Walker Basham. He's the intern for Stick to Football, Bleacher Report's NFL Draft podcast, and he's also he does a podcast it's called All Aboard AAF. It's the best place to go to figure out AAF news and anything about the Alliance. So make sure y'all go check that out and stay in tune for that. But the reason we're going to talk before that is so much college basketball news through Alabama. You know, everything that's happened since the last time we talked, I'm pretty sure that we hadn't even gotten into the end of the season since the last time we had an episode. And if so, is at the very end. You know, Avery Johnson fired. Pretty much the entire team's in the transfer portal. And then we got our head coach. So first off, what do y'all think about the firing of Avery Johnson and then the hiring of Oats?
I mean, the firing of Avery Johnson was something that really sucked because I feel like I speak for most, if not all, of the students. Like, as a person, we loved Avery Johnson. Very social guy. Was very personable with everybody he met. Would come and shake our hands at like Baumhauer's, at Hey Coach and everything. But you could just feel it was time for him to go, especially with all the supporters like backing out on him, and like you tell nobody kind of believed him anymore. And it kind of felt like he'd about reached the ceiling because this is like his third year with the exact same record, and just making the NIT is just not good enough. It's not where we want to be, especially under Greg Byrne. And I like the hire of Nate Oats. Honestly, I had to look him up after we hired him. But from what I can tell, I think it's great. We'll have a much better offense and score a lot more points, I think. So I'm glad.
Yeah, when we hired Avery, it was a gamble. It was a guy who had never coached at college before, but had some success on the NBA level. And he did some good things for our program. You know, he brought in Colin Sexton, and John Petty was top 50 recruit, higher than that. Actually, he promoted the program probably better than any coach in the past several years. But he also just couldn't take us to that next level. It seemed like, we would peak at the middle of the year, then always seemed to collapse towards the end, and I really think it really seemed like the team just kind of lost him, and I think you saw the attendance of the last NIT game. I think the fans had lost him too, and I think it didn't leave Greg Byrne with much of a choice.
Yeah, like going into his tenure here, I think he was exactly what Alabama needed, and there's no doubt. And he's definitely done things for Alabama that we need at the time, and he's definitely brought us back into a more relevant. I mean, we only made one NCAA tournament under him, but now that's the standard. And before, we were nowhere near that. We wanted a good NIT performance before. So, like, just the growth that we've had with him was great. But, it stinks because, like you said, he is a great guy and he's great for the university. But when it's just not there on the court, it's not there. Now, going into Nate Oats, of course, he is the former coach at Buffalo, which is mid-majors. So I really like what he does offensively. I believe Buffalo had the 6th best scoring offense this year, and I really like his ability to develop players, because that was the biggest knock on Avery was, can you develop well? Like, can you take a good recruit and make him a good college basketball player? And that was really something that he struggled with. But I think going in with this new tenure, I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue. I think the big issue, like you said, would be recruiting, because, he did a lot of great things at Buffalo, but there's just so much you can do at Buffalo. He got, I believe, one 4-star recruit, and it's the only one in Buffalo history. So, moving regions, you're no longer be recruiting New York area, you're going to be recruiting the Southeast a lot. So can you make the ties that you need, and we know you can develop who you get, but can you get people that are going to be able to start as freshmen and perform well?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to like about Nate Oats. He's a very analytical guy. He, if you ever heard him talk, he talks about the analytical stats a lot. He runs a very high-paced offense. He runs, like you said, I think he averaged 85 points a game, which that was, in the MAC. So he's going to face a little bit tougher competition, but that's still impressive. Defensively, he really emphasizes on-ball pressure, kind of like, honestly, his coaching style is kind of similar to what you see Auburn play at Bruce Pearl. I'm not exactly sure about the three-point volume, but as far as defensively and the pace of offense,
volumes there, I looked. The percentage isn't where you'd like to see it, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they shot almost as many threes as Auburn this year.
Yeah. Okay. He's a young, energetic guy. I don't know if you've seen some of the comments he's made. He's pretty blunt. He seems like he'd relate well to young guys. Like you said, the recruiting is going to be the biggest thing. He signed 7 of the 10 highest rated recruits at Buffalo, and like you said, he brought in the only 4-star Buffalo's ever gotten. So the recruiting's a little bit of a question mark, but I'm not so much concerned about the Southeast ties if he can go to other regions and get some recruits too. Because, I mean, like, let's be honest, the basketball players are usually from not the Southeast. They're from more up north and stuff like that. I'm not sure if it's going to translate to Alabama, but he was around top 75 in free throw percent shooting. We weren't in top 100. So there's a lot of things to like about Nate Oats. I'm really excited to see what he can do. He was at Buffalo for a few years, made it. The last 2 years he won the first game Subway tournament, and yeah, I'm just really excited to see what he do. I think Avery Johnson recruited really well while he was here, but it didn't seem like he had a plan. Like, he was just recruiting high-rated guys. I think we're going to see Nate Oats maybe not just look at the rankings and the stars, but he's going to go after guys that fit his mold, who are good shooters, who can play good defense, and can run the floor with, good speed.
What I like is, like, I trust Greg Byrne a lot, just because of the moves he's made since becoming the AD. Haven't been a whole lot, but he hired Bohannon, and you see how that's turned out. We're like 20-4, 20-5, something like that, and in Bohannon's second year. And so the fact that I looked at it, 75 hours since the firing of Avery Johnson to the hiring of Nate Oats. You got to think that Nate Oats was probably in the back of Greg Byrne's mind at some point, especially towards the end of the season. And he even said that he'd been watching Nate Oats, and you got to think that was one of his top guys after firing Avery Johnson, just because of how rapid the hiring process went and how, I guess, smoothly it went, because that's fast for a hire.
Yeah, and honestly, you just have to tip your hat off to how Greg Byrne handled it, because he said in his press conference, one of the things was, don't believe anything that doesn't come from my mouth. And right before the Oats hiring was announced, every person that was talking, who this coach was going to be, was saying Thad Matta. Like, that's where Twitter was going. That's where all the buzz was around. And then just bombshell, this guy that wasn't even put on pretty much any big list that most people had. So the fact that he was able to keep this under wraps, you don't really hear about the AD being the one announcing hirings. It's usually leaked before you get to announce it. So I think that's just, another, tip of the cap to him, because that was very tough for him to do. And he was able to still get it done.
Yeah, I thought Byrne did a great job keeping this under wraps. I love that he took the initiative that, he was going to be the one who decided who the next basketball coach was, and nobody else was, because, it's not like that everywhere. But, he's the athletic director, and he's paid to make those kind of decisions. I'm going to be interested to see what kind of staff Oats fills in around him. I mean, there's, a lot of people would like to see Bucky McMillan join just for the Trenton Watford factor. The smoke right now is that he's going to bring his top assistant from Buffalo with him to Alabama right now. Okay. But you have 3 assistant coaches, though. So, we'll just have to see how he fills out the rest of that.
Yeah. Now, going back to what you were saying about him being, a player's coach. So a big thing, his first job, besides, trying to finish out this recruiting class, is retaining all those people in the transfer portal. So it is currently 10:22 Wednesday night, and this probably can come out Friday. So some of these might be, official coming back or new commits to other schools. But when you look at the 4 players, who do you think is most likely to come back from Alabama out of Kyra Lewis, Petty, Giddens, and Dazon?
Most likely to come back?
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that Dazon's the most likely to leave for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Dazon's gone.
I believe so.
It seems like. I'm gonna say Giddens maybe.
Yeah, Giddens
it seems
is probably
like
up
he would
there.
have a it seems like coach could maybe, I don't know though. Like, I'm not sure how much he's gonna use a big 5 in his lineup. But like we just don't have that right now on the roster unless we can get a grad transfer or I know he offered one guy that he had offered at Buffalo today, but
Yeah.
I would say Gittins or Petty.
Yeah. Also, you have to think in terms of like what Alabama would like. Obviously, the two highest ones up there are your two leading scorers coming back, Kyra and Petty, and then also I think the ones that would make the most sense to come back are also Kyra and Petty because, like we said, this is an offensive mind who likes to shoot the three ball, likes to play fast paced, and that's the kind of offense that these people they didn't really get to play under with Avery Johnson. Like he always wanted to play fast, but we weren't playing fast, and it was mostly find the best mismatch and hope that you can get a decent shot off. Now it's going to be an actual system on offense, and you're not going to be forcing shots. You're not going to have to get your points. It's going to flow better in a system. So, I mean, I'm not predicting that either of them are going to come back, but I know that's what Alabama fans are rooting for, and honestly, I think it would make sense in their mind. Like, if I was them, I think I would come back.
Yeah, one of the things, like, you talk about the offensive style, like, when Avery came here, he said he wanted to play fast, and, we just never saw that. We were one of the slower-paced teams in the league every year, but I think we're really going to have more of a, we're going to have an offensive system now, I think. And more importantly, I don't think we're going to be blindly recruiting. I think we're really just going to recruit to, the kind of guys he thinks can play in his system.
I mean, when you look at the first guy that he offers was I can't remember his name, but that like 6'9", 225 guy.
You talking about the guy that he'd already like?
Yeah, he like recruited him to Buffalo.
Yeah, Raymond something. It starts with an H, but I don't know.
I just put him in my article on Busting Brackets now. I already forgot his name. But yeah, we'll just call him
Raymond Hawkins.
Raymond Hawkins, that's it. So when you look at Raymond Hawkins, I mean, he's a 3-star. So that's not someone that you're, if that's your first offer, clearly you're not trying to find the biggest names. You're trying to find who I can use in my offensive and like my system in general.
Yeah.
So the fact that that's a guy that he really wanted to go to Buffalo and he still wants him in Alabama when he's just a 3-star, he obviously says, okay, this is what I need. These are the players I need. Let me go get those guys, which I think he's going to help out because a good thing going for him is his offensive mind.
Yeah. Well, I think the composite score for Raymond Hawkins was like 3-star. I think like 200 something, but 24/7 had him at 88 overall, which is like a whole lot better than 200 something. So he's still a solid player. Not to take away from him.
Yeah, this is one of two things. Like you said, either he's recruiting to a style guy he wants, or either he sees that the center position on our roster is depleted and he's really trying to get somebody. Because here's the thing about the 4 players in the portal. And obviously, no disrespect to those two guys, but, you look at Kyra and Petty, he would obviously want those guys back. Mm-hmm. But if Oats doesn't see, Ingram's not a high-volume three-point shooter. Giddens is a really, back-to-the-basket 5 who doesn't really run the floor. If he doesn't see those kind of guys who fit his style, he doesn't have to try to recruit them out of the portal. I don't know if he will or not. I would love to have all 4 of those guys back because, I think – there's a spot for each of them. And I'd like to see what Oats could do to improve their game. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he constructs the roster and,
Yeah. So what are your expectations for the first year? This will be the last question, then we'll wrap up.
I don't really think an expectation question's fair till we see what the roster's going to look like. Because, when we see who's all coming back from the portal, because, just say all 4 of those guys leave. Now, and we also got the 3 guys that are committed. We don't know for sure if they're coming, and then you're also looking at a bunch of transfers.
And you're also looking at the guys who like redshirted this year, our 2 freshmen that didn't even play. So there's a lot of question marks.
Right now, as of guys that are not in the portal, you're looking at Herb Jones, Tevin Mack, Alex Reese, and Galen Smith. Am I missing anybody? Like that's you're looking as your guys that played. Last year coming back. If let's just say like Kyra and Petty and just say all 4 of those guys come back, I think we have a legitimate shot. We're probably a bubble team again in Oats' first year. Like we're probably borderline making the Subway tournament. If all those guys leave, we're probably not making the Subway tournament unless we pull some big transfers or somebody like Trenton Watford. But I'm okay with whatever happens. Look at Pearl. His first 2 years at Auburn, he had had losing season his first 2 years there, and I think it took him till his fourth year to make the tournament. So I think it's important to be patient. Give him some time. Let him get his guys in there, and just trust him and see what he can do.
Hearing everyone that's coming back, and of course, we lost a freshman point guard this class. Like he transferred, and we brought Kyra in to replace him. And so if Kyra leaves, God, we really need point guards. Like if Kyra's not there, then the guard position is going to be incredibly. Honestly, I think Lawson Schaefer could have started next year if he had one more year of eligibility.
He almost could have I mean, I think he probably already. Did he already redshirt? Did Lawson?
I would have to guess he would have.
Yeah, he could have almost redshirted again this year because he didn't play hardly at all this year. He played a lot less than previous years, which is crazy since his senior year.
Dang, that's tough. We're going to miss him a lot. But, okay, so, all right, that's going to wrap up this part of the podcast. Up next, we're going to have, like I said, Walker Basham, the intern for Stick to Football, and then one of the hosts of All Aboard AAF and AAF podcast. So let's go ahead and get that on there. All right, everybody, we got a special interview for you now. We have Walker Basham. He is the intern for Stick to Football, which is Bleacher Report's NFL Draft podcast, and he's also the co-host of All Aboard AAF, best podcast to go if you need anything about the Alliance. So make sure you check him out there. And first off, just thank you for doing this for us, Walker. It means a lot.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
So obviously, you're an intern for Stick to Football, so we got to talk about the draft first with Alabama. And it seems like it's been a while. But it's been relatively recent, the Pro Day. So who do you think helped themselves the most out of Alabama's Pro Day?
Yeah, for sure. So, Pro Day is kind of like three parts. It's a little bit like the Combine where you weigh in, get some measurements done, and then you test like the 40 bench press, vertical, all that good stuff. And then there's a lot of on-field drills with NFL coaches. So there's kind of three ways you can evaluate the Pro Day like you can a Combine. Obviously, Josh Jacobs ran 4.61, had, some people freaking out about, his breakaway speed, but if you watch Jacobs play, like he's got plenty of speed on tape. He's got the agility. He's just very fluid with the ball. So he showed that in a lot of the drills there. So he really, despite the 40 time, he helped his status there. And then some other guys that I heard had a very good day were Irv Smith and Jonah Williams. And, Jonah Williams, obviously, people are talking about where's he going to play in the NFL? Is he going to be a guard? Is he going to be a center? Is he going to be a tackle? And to be honest, you can plug him in at any of those positions and you have a 10-year starter. He's just a guy that you plug him in and you forget about that position for 10 years. It's a real luxury to have. Irv Smith, he's probably considered the third tight end on most people's boards in this draft behind the duo from Iowa, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant. But, he's had a solid pro day. He did the drill. From what I heard, obviously I wasn't there, had a good field workout. So those are the guys that kind of came away and impressed some of the NFL coaches.
Yeah, I think Irv Smith, it was really important for him because he didn't have the best combine. So he's in that top tier of tight ends, but he was at the very bottom of it. So he really needed to avoid, becoming the top of the second tier and still try to stay up there with Hawkinson and Fant. And I agree. I think he had a pretty good day.
A lot of look for him to be in a Patriots uniform in 2019.
Yeah,
I had to guess.
That would be fantastic for him. And also, obviously, if he does that, it's probably going to be a first-round pick. So it's just, an extra first-rounder. So another guy, and, the numbers aren't going to wow you, but I know you're pretty high on him. Ross Pierce-Baker, of course, a multi-year starter at center for Alabama. Where do you see him in terms of, draft projection, and what do you think he's going to have in terms of career in the NFL?
So I think this is, fairly underrated guy in the NFL draft. You look at him, he's a 3 or 4 year starter at Alabama. That's very hard to do on the offensive line. I mean, he was going up against the best defensive tackles in the country in the SEC and was consistently one of the best linemen for the Crimson Tide, kind of like Jonah Williams since he plugged it in now. If you look at some of the centers in this draft, this guy from NC State, Garrett Bradbury, what he has that Ross doesn't is he's a little more athletic. He's a little more fluid in his movements and maybe a little more technically refined. But I still think he'll probably go third, fourth round, somewhere in there. After the second round, it gets harder and harder to predict what round and what team guys are going to go to. Because teams will take flyers on guys on late day 2 and day 3. But I would be shocked to see him fall out of the 4th round.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys where, you're not going to really talk about him at draft time, but whoever picks him up, I think they're kind of like John Williams, where you're going to get a multi-year starter, and you're going to look back and be like, why did we let this guy fall so far? Because, like, he's not going to be one of the best, but I don't think you're ever going to be upset with him in your starting lineup in the NFL, or at least in my eyes.
No, absolutely not. He might not be a Pro Bowler, but he'll be a solid starter.
All right, and a guy who definitely will be a Pro Bowler, Quinnen Williams. So the talk's been mostly, in that 3 to 5 range. Some people have him as high as, to the 49ers. I think if he drops too much, there's a chance someone will trade up just because he's such a good talent. So if you could just pick, a number in the draft or a team, realistically, where would you have him going?
Yeah, I don't see him falling past 3. If the Jets won't take him, someone will trade up. The only thing that'll stop him from going 3, assuming 1 and 2 are Murray and Bosa, assuming that's the order. At number 3, I would be shocked to see Williams fall past that unless the Giants try and trade up to get Dwayne Haskins. Then I could see him going at 4 to the Raiders. But at 3, the Jets, they're looking to trade out of that pick as they might want to, because there's not really a premier player at a position of need for them. But Quinnen Williams is one of those guys. He's a special talent. If he's on the board, you should take it. And I think every team that doesn't trade up for him, because it'll be a pretty, compared to last year where the Jets had to move up to draft Darnold at 3, going from 6 to 3, the price will not be as steep this year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see someone from the 8 to 12 range try and trade up to 3 to get Quinnen Williams from the Jets.
Yeah, definitely. And this is just something like, so one of my roommates who's usually on Dorm Squad is a Titans fan, and one's a Saints fan. I don't have an NFL team, really. I just keep up with Alabama players in general. But if you could just put any guy from Alabama onto any NFL team and just say, forget the draft, forget projections or anything, just assign him to a team and put him in a jersey there, who would you take and where would you put him?
I put Quinn Williams on the Packers because that's my team, but that's what I would want for sure. But even though we got Kenny Clark there, you just take the best player in the draft. Bosa. I think personally, Williams is better than Bosa. I think people are talking about him as a 1-year guy, but or only a 1-year starter. But I look at that as kind of an advantage because he put on tape. He dominated the SEC this year. Like, he was the best defensive player in football, and in my opinion, wasn't very close. And you look at Bosa, he's got a history of injuries, and so does his brother. So I think, Quinn's probably – I think a pass rushing defensive tackle is almost, if not more valuable than a stud defensive end. Like Quinn Williams, everyone talks about him as Aaron Donald. And even if he's not that good, if he's somewhere close, that's a huge pickup for any team. So I really like Quinn, and I would love to see him in a Packers uniform. But unfortunately, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, Bryant said the exact same thing. He's, Titans fan. He said, put Quinn Williams on the Titans and do whatever it takes to happen. A couple that I was thinking about, like you already said, Irv to the Patriots. I think that's just a logical fit that could happen. And it probably won't happen because they're going to probably focus on defense. But if you could put Josh Jacobs on the Chiefs and have him, fill that hole that Kareem Hunt's left and play alongside Patrick Mahomes, that'd be so good for Alabama players.
Yeah, a lot of the chat about Jacobs, from what I hear, is that he'd be a great fit for the Eagles as well. I've heard
yeah, same.
And then some people are saying Raiders. They've got 3 first-round picks, so they can kind of have. I don't really want to call it a luxury pick because they're not in a position where they can take first-round picks that aren't needs. But Marshawn Lynch is getting up there in age, and if you got 3 first-round picks, that's probably the best time to use one on a running back if you're going to. So. At 25, wouldn't be surprised to see Jacobs go there. And, there are some concerns about this injury that's been bugging him a little bit, but that should be fine.
Yeah, I think he cleared up a good bit of that by doing so much in the workouts in his pro day. Because I went to the state football meetup, and I actually asked Matt Miller, and he said, pro day is going to be a huge thing for him one way or the other, because if he's still having injury concerns, then that might be a bigger red flag. But if he can answer some questions with his play, and I think he did that for the most part, for at least most teams drafting in that range, Like if I was a GM, I'd be confident taking him in that late, 20 to even later in the first round range.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'd be a little surprised if he fell out of the first round.
Same. All right, let's go ahead and move over to the AAF because that's what you cover a lot. So, a lot of Alabama fans, they'll keep up with the Birmingham Iron, but they don't keep up with details or anything. They just look at, scores and, the occasional stat. Who do you think whether it's a former Alabama player or just in general, who do you think has the best chance of being a contributor on an NFL roster in the near future?
So, obviously you've got Trent Richardson on the Iron. Given his talent and pedigree, he's probably I don't even know if he'll make it back in the NFL, man, but he's probably, as far as Alabama guys goes, he's probably got the best shot to be a contributor. There's another guy, Richard Mullaney. If you don't remember him, he was on the 2015 National Championship.
Slotty Pippen.
Transfer.
Oh, yeah. I remember Slotty Pippen.
Transfer guy. He was injured for about 3 weeks there with the Rockets, but since he's been back, he's been tearing it up. He's been getting about 6 or 7 yards per game for about 90 to 80 to 90 yards a game. And if he keeps that up, he'll have a shot. And then aside from that, not a ton of – the Iron is full of guys from Alabama, but, it's a lot of offensive linemen. And Xavier Dickinson has had a couple of big plays this year, but I'm not sure he's had consistent enough to, make it to the NFL. But he's had a couple of big plays. And then, in general, some names to keep an eye on. Rashad Ross and Charles Johnson, a set of wide receivers. One plays for the Hot Shots in Arizona, and one plays for the Orlando Apollos. As far as quarterback goes, Luis Perez on the Iron, actually, he's this D2 guy. If you don't know who he is, he's D2. He won the D2's version of the Heisman his year. He won a national championship. He's been called the best Division II quarterback ever. And he actually turned down a bowling scholarship in college to play quarterback and learn how to play quarterback on YouTube. And he started to catch fire recently. He's thrown 5 touchdowns in his last 2 games. So some of those guys are pretty likely to go, I think.
Yeah. So, and then also, of course, Birmingham's, study rivalry from the past few weeks. The Atlanta Legends are coming to Birmingham March 31st. How do you see that game going down?
It's not going to go well for the Legends.
What I like to hear.
Yeah, they had Aaron Murray. They had a little brief surge of decency, and then they followed back into just not being very good. They're the only team in the AAF that has lost by 30 or more points. It's happened 3 times already. So I expect a pretty big win for the Iron.
Yeah, hopefully so. My girlfriend and I are going that for our 1 year, so that'll be a good thing to watch.
Oh, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. So, all right, one more question. So we asked this. The only other interview we've done on the podcast so far is Dazon Ingram. So first off, hopefully you don't find your way in the transfer portal before you graduate. And then also, we asked him something that we're going to ask whoever we bring on. What's your favorite Alabama moment? It can be something personal from your time here, a favorite thing that you saw live, second and 26, whatever you want it to be.
To be honest, I don't know if anything will ever top the LSU game my freshman year. That was probably the best game day experience we had. It poured, rained, but that just made the tailgate a little more sloppy. It was a ton of fun. Sitting in the upper bowl, man, I miss it. It was real rowdy up there. The stadium was rocking. Leonard Fournette was getting just drilled by Reuben Foster, and we came out with a nice win. That was a lot of fun. Close second though is second to 26.
Yeah, I'll probably be saying something like that because we're all freshmen this year, so the Iron Bowl this year, having Dixieland a lot brought back, and being up in the upper bowl for that's probably gonna be top 5 whenever we graduate.
I miss the upper bowl, and I'm definitely gonna miss the student section next year. So
yeah, for real.
Enjoy it while you can.
Oh, I definitely will. All right, so thank you so much again for doing this. It totally means a lot to us, and make sure everyone listening, y'all go. What's the best way to get to the stuff you do?
If you're following Stick to Football, I do all the graphic design and stuff for the social media. And then All Aboard AAF is my podcast. Twitter is all_AAF. You can subscribe on Spotify or follow me there. I started writing a little bit for a couple of Alliance sites, so like Alliance Football Focus and then Whole Nine Sports. I'm putting some stuff out there for them.
All right, awesome. All right, thank you again so much.
No problem, man. Have a good one.
You too. Alrighty, so that wraps up this episode of Dorm Squad Sports. Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure y'all go follow Walker on everything he said. That was a great interview, so shout out to him for helping us out there. And make sure you subscribe Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, our Twitter. Follow on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube, however you want to listen to us. Y'all have a great week, and roll Tide.